G'day, welcome back. Right, a little bit late with this video, got some things going on, didn't get around to it. So, let's have a chat about something that's going on with the March. Since the dawn of time. Actually, that might be a bit much. Since the March was created. Actually, no, it was two-wheel drive then. Since the March was made four-wheel drive. There's been a little bit of a catastrophic design cluster, I can't say that word, a stuff up. So, limited space in the back of the beastie, as we all know. Let's have a look at that. In some areas, right? So you've got a ginormous cavity here with a mid-sized engine. A couple of turbochargers hanging off the side of it. And the whole design philosophy, some of you can see what I'm going to go with this already. The whole design philosophy was all this stuff needed to go that way as much as we possibly could. And that way. Because that's how you make a good race car. Not really, but you want it balanced, right? So that was the idea. Since the engine's in the back, go that way quite a lot, because I knew we'd be slightly biased towards the back if we didn't. In the end, what did we get? Something like in the initial, where it was first moving on its own power, we were, let me think, it's 317 kgs, I think. 301 kgs and 300 kgs, 300 kgs without the driver in it, and about a third of a tank of gas or a quarter of a tank of gas. So you could actually fill the gas tank at the front of the car there. It's marginally to the left, it's kind of in the middle, but a little bit to the left. You could actually fill that right up and put a relatively smallish driver like Paul Radisich in the middle of the car. That's where the seat is smack bang in the center of the, you probably can't, of the car, you can't see the wheels, so it makes it a bit hard, right? And you get a perfect weight and balance. So that was awesome. That was good. To get the turbos in there, I because chassis rails are quite sort of close really to where the side of the engine is. You can't even see it, can you? This is terrible. I tucked them down the sides of the engine. Now this one here is not so much of a big problem for airflow. Originally I ran getting air into them. Originally I ran those foam filters that you can see on the top of the shelf over there that we are getting closer and closer to. These ones here. One of these, it's that one. Look at that. Can you see the distortion in that? You certainly should be able to see it there. The heat that is coming into this is enough that it distorts the plastic. So its original mounting location on the front of that turbocharger, down about here somewhere on the inside of the car, wasn't very good for airflow. It was drawing hot air from, you can see them in there, the exhaust headers, which are just about there somewhere, was drawing hot air from that general area. That side's easy, right? So I fixed that. That's a piece of cake. And I had already, I think I've shown you guys my paint can. There's a paint can video showing you how to make a cold air box out of a paint can. And so I've just done that conversion on the left-hand side. It's a piece of cake, right? So it's just like 135 degree silicon bend on the top of on the front of the turbo. Piece of tube into the air filter in the paint can, and then through the knacker duct on the side of the car. That side's going to get cold air. It's going to be good. It'll get warmed up a tiny little bit with radiant heat onto the can and onto the tubes, but it's, for all intents and purposes, it is good air. The driver's side is a bit of a drama because there's not the room to do that easily, and I'll show you that in a minute. But originally I had that all set up with a panel, which I have to go and find. It's on my messy bench over here. Let's go back over here. I had that all set up with a panel. Forget about those. That goes on the bottom of the under tray like that. sorry, like that. There we go. And it created a nice little cavity for the air filter to sit in. It was sitting in this area here. And there's a bit of an opening at the front of it with a bit of a tapered edge to try and draw air in. There's lots of speed hole, 5 speed hole, lots, 5, whatever. Some speed holes put in it to get cold air into the air filter. Reasonably sound idea until you think it through a little bit. Look, it's the whiteboard. Here we go again. So we've got racetrack. We've got race car. It's flying. Yeah, I just did a jump. Awesome. And we've got aero under the race car. I'm going to fix this because it's just someone will complain. Someone will have OCD. I'll make the whole lot crooked. We got a flat tire too now. Never mind. So anyway, we're trying to get cold air into the motor. Where's the motor? I think the motor is literally about here somewhere. It's quite a long way forward in the car. We want to get cold air to about this general area here. What happens is under here we've got lots of air that I've had a splitter on the front, and I've got this air flowing nice and fast through here, right? So put some arrows on it to make it real cool. Air that is flowing fast or faster than other air is lower pressure relatively. So engine bay is basically as high pressure because it's not moving around heaps in there, right? It's relatively static. Air that's coming through underneath the car is low pressure because that's going quite fast comparatively to that. Very fast actually. Should be a couple hundred k an hour in comparison to that. This air is actually static and the car's moving over the top of it, but let's not look at it that way. It's easier to do it this way. So what we've got is a high pressure and a low pressure, and of course everyone knows that's going to create airflow that way. And if you've got an exhaust system here and a turbine and all that sort of carry on, and any air that flows that way is going to be hotter air. We're taking hotter air out of the engine bay and letting it slip out the bottom of the car right past where the air filter was. Whoops, first point of failure. So, and I knew about it, wasn't that concerned about it. Tried to work around it, it's not playing out that well, so that's why we're just reinventing things a little bit further. The other thing that happens is the racetrack has sunlight coming down on here at a bajillion hotties, and it makes this tarmac surface here pretty damn hot. Like, you don't want to walk around on it on bare feet on the wrong days. It'll literally burn your feet. So then the air that is sitting here on the top of the racetrack is actually quite warm. There's convection currents that'll pull it up once it gets too hot, but this air that's here is actually going to be hotter than the air that's up here somewhere, and that'll eventually, it all circulates and moves away with currents and stuff, which we all know about that because we all studied science at school, so we know. So there's two sources of heat. There's one from the exhaust, headers and turbine, etc., and one from the track surface here. And also we're trying to draw air from a lower pressure area. So all in all, the original air intake filter location for the right hand side of the car was a bit dumb, but was done for a reason. Let's have a look under the car and I'll show you what it's all about. Might as well go for the visual demonstration. So we've got the front of the splitter curling down a little bit to increase the speed of the air through there. Yep, there's discussions about you shouldn't have a splitter pointing upwards into the airflow because it generates lift according to some calculations and some people and stuff and opinions and all that sort of carry on. But if you speed up airflow, it gives you lower pressure, higher airspeed. So actually tapering that down just a tiny little bit at the start there gives a bit of a Venturi effect, lower pressure here. And I could demonstrate that, but I don't need to because we have Venturis and carburetors and all that sort of stuff, so everyone knows that's what happens. This general area here, this was where my panel was, underneath my air filter, and I was using the basic shape of the floor there to create a little bit of, should have been, ram air effect into there. I think it was working out, but this was low enough pressure here and that was high enough pressure in there that even though the basic momentum was that way, this was still pulling air out that way and tucking it around to the back of the car. It's all theory, it hasn't been CFD'd or anything, kind of just guessing at it. So, I've got to watch this camera, it doesn't flick around and go the other way. Originally where this black 90-degree coupler is, was an air filter on the end of that coupler, and this was pointed straight down, so the air filter was on this plane here. And you can see there's a little bit of hammer time going on in there to give it all enough room for it to work, because we're very, very close to the original parts of the chassis that I don't want to chop out. Could do, it's not impossible, I just didn't want to. So what I've done now, use that same 90 because it's been cut quite short to make it as short as possible, turn it around here and made up a bit of a donut. I forgot to go and see John at Strange Workshop and get a proper donut. He has them in stock and I just forgot while I was in Auckland yesterday. Whoopsie daisy. So now I've managed to squeeze that up through there to the top side of the engine bay, and from there it's a piece of cake. I would take that off, but it's actually going to be hard to do with one hand while I'm running the camera. But that was not the easiest thing to get from there around and up. And I've also got a little bit of concern that that will create some restriction in the airflow into the turbo. And we're talking tiny numbers here. All the stuff that I'm going on about, calling it a catastrophe, etc., is just dramatization, because it's not going to make a significant difference in the scheme of things. I am just mucking around. So, I've got that pointing up to the top there. You guys won't be able to see it, but I can see. Oh, here's the end of it here. Hang on. Oh, there. It points up to the top. Yay! So I will get up to the side of it and get that sorted. Oh, look. Paint can to air filter box conversion. It's carefully stored in my mess under here. It's pretty easy, pretty simple. I showed you in the earlier video. Cut a hole in the lid. Get your air filter. Here's my new air filter. These ones are a better style of air filter than these ones. These are more restrictive to airflow. And there's a bit of a design stuff up. They have some screws that hold the two pieces of the filter together. That's actually a separate piece right there at the edge of my fingernail. And we've already been there, done that, where the heat has distorted the frame of the filter enough that it's popped a couple of those screws out, and one of them's gone into the turbo and destroyed the turbocharger compressor. So they're not the best filters to run on a turbocharged car by a long shot. These are far more suitable. What you can do, once you've got your hole cut in here, you pop the rubber out of that, like that. Pop it to the outside, not the inside. It's very hard to do with one hand. That'll do for now. You take the lid, sit the lid over the top of that, put the rubber back on, trapping both pieces together. Then you put the filter inside the can, and that's now a cold air box. You use, buy a couple of sets of filters because they're not very dear. You use the grommet from another one that goes on there and put it in another hole, and that's your air intake. And you take a tube, put it wherever you like. Done deal. Right, so that's our funky new intake pipe. It actually sits in the vehicle like that. Don't mind the WRX. Yes, roll cage for the WRX. We'll get onto that soon. Yeah, so this end goes on to the 90, that then goes into the compressor, which is in the direction of the Subaru there. Goes around the corners. Don't mind the, no, not the ugliest in the world, but certainly not SEMA quality welds. None of those will be seen anyway. This one will. This one's probably a little bit better. Gave all that a little bit of a polish, not for cosmetic purposes, just for heat reflecting purposes, because the exhaust manifold's not so far away from there. Around the corner there, and into the air intake filter. So, not the simplest little piece of pipe. We'll add weight to the car. We'll add restriction to the air intake into the turbo, but kind of hoping the colder air is going to outweigh that. Colder air and higher pressure, it should cancel that out, and we should be better off in theory. So we're using the should equation, not the CFD equation, not the other computations that could be used if we decided to. Generally don't bother. It's just a toy. It's just a fun car. It should go better. If it doesn't, whatever, carry on, change it to something else. Right, I'm going to fit it now, and then I'll have some lunch. Alright, that'll do. Sufficient for now. Not perfect, but that will do. I do have to go and get that grommet. So another air filter and steal a grommet out of it, put it on the end of that piece of scat hose that goes down into that air filter can, I guess we call it, air filter box, whatever. But other than that, that system ready to go for testing and seeing how we go. It's not the perfect thing, and there's some already different incarnations of this in my head to go forward with. If we see that it's worthwhile, I can build a proper sort of airbox inside the guards there with a panel filter on it instead. Just make things a lot tidier and cleaner and simpler and more efficient and possibly lighter. Yep, so that's that. So since the last time I've used it, we've got bigger fittings on this intercooler here. We've gone up to 12s instead of 10s. The rest of the system was already potentially, no, actually I think we had some 10s on the main pipes that go front to back, but they're changed now. So we've got more flow through the intercooler to help cool things down, and we've got colder air going into the turbo, so, and higher pressure. It should work, but we'll see. That'll do for now. Better close the bloody boot, get on with Subaru, putting a cage, keep the monkey inside Subaru. Alright, I didn't just call the owner a monkey, did I? No, let's not be silly about it. So, this is a cage that, you have to excuse me, it's a pre-built, pre-bent and cut to length cage that comes from a guy down in South Island. Can't remember the name of the company off the top of my head, but we've done at least a couple of kits from there. They work out quite well, much better than me fluffing around trying to bend the main hoop. Goes back here. They can be a nuisance, so I'll get on with this. Already told you someone else prefabs these, bends them all up, cuts the tubes to length, marks them, tells you what they're for. The rest is up to you. They give you some plates. In this situation on this particular car, because dirty old Subaru run all the vanes through the inside of the car, brake lines, fuel hoses, those things, hydraulic stuff, Bundy tubing, whatever we're going to call it, they run those through the inside of the car, so they kind of get in the way and make it a bit annoying. And there's a bit of shapes going on the floor pan area where I like to put the roll bars. I think that's the main roll hoop. I think this area here is the strongest area in the cars, so if you can attach onto that, that's the best idea. And it gives you, you don't have to build a footing box. So set the main hoop up on here, line up everything, and then you can push it forward, drop it down, and weld the top of the back stays and the front laterals, which would normally be way up inside this cavity and impossible to get. But if you can drop them down that far, which is step from there down to there, you can get on top and weld them up. So we're doing that. So I've fabricated these. Bit of a plate. Gave that a bit of a knock down. That's just a general piece of panel steel for a mount for the seat. Persuaded that out of the way. So yeah, it's technically someone could argue that that particular point of the mount is no longer in contact with the floor, but it actually is. It's just the floor is slightly reshaped. So this is much bigger than the 120 square centimeters that we need anyway. In fact, if I cut it off at about there and down here, then we've got our 120 square centimetres. I've run it over the front edge there to get a grip on that side as well, and we've placed it on top of, placed it on top of the seam between the floor area and the sill, so it's literally the strongest area that I can find around here. So if you want to grizzle about that, but there you go here, that's fine, I won't listen. That's ready to clean up all the paint off this general area, weld that into place. Can do on both sides. Ta-da! Then we've got to shape the bottom of the main hoop to suit this. I've already marked where the outside edge of the main hoop should be. As you can see, it's right smack bang where these Bundy hoses are, Bundy tubes, brake tubes, whatever. So they will get a bit of a adjustment, a reshaping to come out and around where the bar is, and then I'll have to wrap them up with, maybe we'll use tin foil or something like that, protect them from the heat while all this welding is going on here. Once I've got that done, I'm going to move forward into that general front area there and sort out what we're doing for the footing plates for the front laterals. Taking the dash bar out to get those front laterals in there, because they literally come down smack bang in the middle of your screen there, and if you can see all the bolt holes and studs and everything there, that's where that dash bar is. So that has to come out to get the laterals in, and then we'll attach them onto this as well. Some braces and stuff, and a little bit of an aluminium tube to fiddle with over there as well. Give us a go. Right, you'll have to watch the next one to see all that happening. Alright, where's the bloody motor gone? Cheers, bye.